If any of you guys are in the UK on the 2nd of November, come along in the morning, Saturday morning, to the Holiday Inn in Bloomsbury for the London Coin Fair, where we will be launching the SilverForum Lounge in collaboration with myself. There will be sample slabs, prize draws, and maybe some coffee and donuts or something if you're lucky as well. Hey YouTube, it's numismatics here, back with you again for another video. A couple of months ago I was incredibly lucky and privileged to interview Steve Hill, who has edited the latest Marsh book on the gold sovereign. If you haven't got that one in your collection, go out and buy it now. It's absolutely wonderful. And I asked him what I called the $64 million question. Here's a little bit of that interview right now.
And sometimes it's about what survives in the market. It's very hard to gauge that, of course, but it's all about rarity as well. And obviously there are rare dates that people really covet, like 1828, 1841, that sort of thing. So rarity is number two. And then it's the research comes after that. Number three is the research, sorting out what is a rare coin as opposed to another, and reading, doing the background reading, and looking at sales lists and auction catalogues, and speaking to the dealers to find out what's rare and what's not.
There's some absolutely great advice there, Steve, but I want to ask you the $64 million question. We've now had 202 years of the modern sovereign after the anniversary, and if you could pick one coin maybe for collectors to search for, it may not be a star at the moment, something to put away for the next 20 years, what would be your pick, Steve?
It's a very hard question to answer, that one. It's hard to make a pick of any known coin because most research has been done and we know what are the rare dates, we know what are the rare nuances on the coins. Obviously it's always exciting when new varieties appear, but I think there's been a lot of research in the last 10 or 15 years into the different sort of Roman ones and errors in proper errors, I mean, as well, not just sort of an overstrike or something, but something where they've actually put the wrong figure in first, whether it's in the legend or in the date, and they've had to correct it afterwards. And there are things out there which people will find. I mean, I think they're genuinely rare, a lot of these things. I mean, like I'm just thinking, I think it's the 1862, you get R over inverted R in Victoria. That's a real rarity. You know, they don't see that very often. There are a lot of rare varieties from that period of time, before the die number series starts in Queen Victoria's time. So anything that's an unusual true error variety where they've done one figure over another upside down or something like that is always going to be a much more interesting thing than something that's just a sort of double strike or something. So that's what I would suggest, to go for rare varieties like that.
It's October, it's the Coin Connection, one of the very few dealers to care about quality of modern coins, and the code for this month is Thomas. Yep, it's Thomas. Since I've been collecting coins, I've picked up 3 good bits of advice. Number 1, get lots and lots of books and read them thoroughly. Number 2, if you are privileged to speak to an expert who knows what they're talking about through experience and knowledge, listen very, very carefully to what that expert says. And 3, the old one, always buy the coin rather than the holder, unless of course it's one of those very, very fancy Regency holders from PCGS. So, with all that advice behind me and the conversation with Steve, naturally, one of the coins on my radar was a R over inverted R sovereign from the year 1862. And one of those came into the marketplace thanks to dealer johnblythe.com, who I can totally recommend. Very nice guy, very interesting to chat to. He supports all the main coin shows and you can get him on the web and also on eBay. And he happened to have one of these coins which has got a really interesting history available on his website, and I did the deal with him and put this coin into my collection. So I took Steve's advice and I bought this for my collection, not to resell. And this is the R over inverted R, which is a really interesting variety. And this particular coin is so far the best one in terms of its grading It's the only one graded with this specific variety on the label at PCGS, and it's one of what Steve Hill tells me is around about 10 coins so far known in the world with this variety. You can see the R, it's not quite sort of standard, and it's basically an upside down R that was put onto the die by accident, and then it was kind of covered up and replaced with an R the right way. Nobody knows how many coins made it out into the market with this particular die, this error die, but very, very few have been uncovered, and most of the other ones that have been uncovered are in pretty poor condition. So there you go, a little bit of a better, you can see it a little bit better there. I'm going to try and take some photographs and make them available once I get to take some specific macro photos of that particular R over inverted R. But it's an interesting error, and after all these years, only 10 have emerged. This particular one was found by Steve Hill a few years ago in, I think, Canada, it was at a dealer, and he recognised it as a new variety. It wasn't previously in the Marsh book, but it now is in the remake, courtesy of Steve, of the Gold Sovereign. And it was then bought by the collector who established the Bentley collection, and that was sold in 2012-2013 at Baldwin's. This coin was at that time in a PCGS MS62 holder. It's since been upgraded into an MS63 holder. I have no particular knowledge of the background to that upgrade, but clearly it was put in again, and the variety was put onto the label, and it got reappraised for one reason or another, one grade higher than it was originally graded when it was auctioned in 2012 as part of Bentley Collection Volume 3. And there's a little bit of information at the end of this video about that particular listing and how it was marketed at that time. But as a coin, all Shield Sovereigns of this grade are absolutely lovely to look at. This particular one's got a lovely honey gold kind of feel to it. It's got a really rich colour, very few marks in the fields. It's an altogether, I think, very, very nice coin. The 63 seems about right as far as I can see. It certainly wasn't a cheap coin. It's a coin that is one of those things that you kind of buy once in a lifetime, and is a coin which will be treasured as part of the collection. So thank you very much, Steve Hill, and thank you very much, John Blythe, for that coin. And I'll show you a little bit about the Bentley Collection listing. You can actually see online, if you look up Bentley Collection and PDF, you can look up all of the catalogues that made up the amazing Bentley collection. And certainly anyone who's interested in sovereigns, I recommend reading a lot of the catalogue listings from the Bentley collection, which are absolutely superb and give a great historical perspective to some of the interesting differences between sovereigns, and certainly some rarities that will hardly ever pop up at auction, even going forward into the future. So in volume number 3, you will find, when you get to 1862, there will be a listing which is the R over R. So here we are, 1862, 1013, lot 1013, and this is the coin that I have. Shows you a little bit of a close-up picture there of the R over R. A little bit of the background to it, of how it was discovered by Steve Hill. And I think it says Northeast Numismatics was the dealer that he found the coin from originally. So it says not many for sale, not many known, the finest known of this variety to the cataloguer, and very rare coin. So I'm absolutely delighted to have that in my collection, and it's part of a strategy which is ongoing in my collection, which is to have fewer coins but coins of a higher quality, and I've been pursuing that for over the last year, 18 months, and I haven't regretted that. I think it's a really good thing to do, makes the coin collection much easier to manage, and certainly the coins become more interesting coins that have a story attached to them, and that's something I particularly like in terms of history as well. So I thought I'd give you another little view of this beautiful coin, 1862 R over inverted R. Really, really lovely coin, and look forward hopefully to many equally interesting coins entering my collection over the next few years. Hope you liked the video. If you did, please like. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe, and there is a little bell somewhere on the screen which lets you be notified if you feel so inclined.